we really don't realize until we have a chance to think through it properly that we associate difficulty with, meaning and worthiness of any cause. And if it's easy, then we shouldn't be doing it, right? It's almost like we're cheating, like we are
right.
We are looking for easy ways, and that's wrong. This
Right.
love for challenge, it has a flip side, right? And we pay with our happiness, fulfillment, and joy for that.
So to be clear, in Chubbies, I did let the burnout get to me, and it completely tainted not completely, but heavily impacted my decision-making, my perspective on timelines, the things that I thought were important. And so I wasn't too pleased with that. So I'm trying to apply those learnings to, and basically for me, it comes down to just trying to think longer term, optimize for the right things. And what helped me, let's say, come to terms or repair or get back in touch with or get away from this notion of burnout and then come back to the place maybe where there was burnout, was just truly, I guess, learning for myself that burnout came from my mind being effectively mismanaging emotions and communication with myself, with my wife, with my co-founders, around where I was in life at that time, where I thought I should have been at that time, what I had to show for it. And a lot of it comes down to money, and being in a startup, a lot of your theoretical money or net worth is tied up in the theoretical equity value of your business, and getting into your mid-30s and not really having a lot of cash, if you mismanage that, which I think I did in terms of like what's important and what I connect to my self-worth and my identity, it can take you on the wrong path. So I think a lot of that, and then just being afraid to have humble conversations with people and be honest and be able to be open to someone telling me, hey, you really messed up here. And then being able to vulnerably say, hey, this is what I feel. I could be crazy, but this is what I'm feeling, rather than you are doing this or whatever. And then the third thing is getting clear and then standing strong in my foundation and who I am and what my self-worth is, and that it's not, and what I love. And if it doesn't make a lot of cash in the short term, that doesn't mean it's bad. Because a binary exit may or may not happen. I think that's the reality with a lot of things that you start from scratch, or the exit or the acquisition may not be the dream that you always thought it would be, and that might have been the reason you started in the first place. But just knowing, if I love this and I feel like it makes the world a better place, I need to own that and be strong and confident in that, and then be able to be more adept at managing all these other things that I've kind of talked about that I feel I let get in the way of and block the reality that I was the luckiest person in the world to be doing what I was doing, working with people I love, creating something that other people loved, and that if it didn't exist, our customers' world wouldn't have been as good as it existing, and we wouldn't have been able to provide these great jobs, and wouldn't have been able to do all of these things that were truly a gift. So, I think that's the way that I was able to get past the burnout, or deal with, or rationalize, or come back to this world of zone of genius, if you will.
How did you go through that process of finding out who you are?
Probably by learning that these other things did not align with who I am, if that makes sense. So meaning you don't know.
What are the other things?
So when I left Chubbies, I did real estate investing. I joined a real estate investment company. And then after that, I joined an enterprise software company. And so I got those two areas of experience. And so doing both of those things, it was hard to tease out whether this is just the agitation associated with doing something new, or is it just purely not where I am at home or in my zone of genius or aligned with, who I am as a person. So that was difficult. But, I think it's sort of like the classic situation of you don't appreciate your health until you're extremely sick. And so I wasn't able to appreciate what I had until it was just so clear that I was sick, or that I wasn't in the realm of an area that I felt alive or at home, or that I was fully actualizing, or whatever term you want to use. That was the way that I found that it wasn't a fit for me, because in a lot of ways I devalued the feeling of, not that something was easy, but just that it was something that I loved. I had this weird thought in my mind that things always had to feel super hard, or because I really loved it, that for some reason it was selfish, or these weird things, where it was a distortion of this. The reality that was, this is something that truly is something that I love and is aligned with who I am.
But Preston, I still find it very difficult to police myself. As I said, I rely on my husband to do that. But how do you overcome that problem?
I don't know if I have a great answer. That's probably an area where I think there's room for further thought. I think the initial answer I would give is the sort of like pain associated with going away and realizing that wasn't the thing, coming home. Maybe I'm still in this honeymoon period. I don't think so, but I just don't know if I have a great process in place for self-policing other than the following. One, of course, my wife. And we've had to go through a lot in terms of working on our relationship and where we view our own respective self-worth and value and what it's tied to. And for us, that comes from a lot of therapy, both individual and as a couple. So I think that we are both able to do that for each other much better now than earlier in our relationship. So that was an arc, that was a journey. Separate from that is having a co-founder. These things that I did on my, let's call it my post-exit, pre-return back to, let's call it brand building, whether it be on the consumer side or just building technology, which is what I'm working on now, they were done alone, largely. And that's what I realized is something that does not work for me, is not a fit, does not work for me, is not a fit for me in terms of what I've found works. So having a co-founder, someone who can balance me out, I find that I need that. I'm not the singular founder who, I don't know, has this clear view of the future, feels completely sure of it and certain at all times, so mission driven that you never have these feelings or get off path. That's not me. I really found that I need other people to, especially in the professional side, who really balance me out. I also don't think it would work having someone who is just like me to, I think that would just sort of like accelerate or amplify the things that maybe are, where things can maybe go wrong if some of these things are not tempered or balanced. So someone who balances me out, and my co-founder Tom is absolutely that, and my superior in so many other ways, and so yeah, balance. So yes, wife and co-founders, and learning that about myself. But again, only learning that through failure, which painful at the time, but helpful now looking back.